Ayurveda and yoga are both practical sciences. That is the reason why after thousands of years also, even today, people are able to relate to those sciences and get benefits out of this Ayurveda and yoga also. So I just wanted to understand the relation, was there any relation between this Ayurveda and yoga in ancient days also, that is during the Samhita period and Vedic period, and I started understanding that there is so much of interrelationship between Ayurveda and yoga. And I'm just trying to present my observations in my study as a paper like role of mind in diseases and use of yoga in Ayurvedic treatment. And both Ayurveda and yoga are ancient sciences, and Ayurveda means Ayushaha Vedaha, that is the knowledge of life, which includes the prevention of diseases and also the treatment of diseases, that is the Swasthasya Swasthya Rakshanam and Aturasya Vikara Prasamanam, that is maintaining the health of the healthy and curing the diseases of the ailing people. And the main aim of this Ayurvedic is Dharma Artha Kama Mokshanam Arogyam Moolam Uttamam. Whatever is the purpose of your life, you need a healthy body and a healthy mind, and this can be achieved through Ayurveda. Excuse me, Priya, can I have the folder? I'm not able to see from here. Or better I move that side, I think. So it is considered as holistic because Ayurveda considers that the human body is not just the body, mind and soul put together. And these three aspects of body, mind and soul are there in preventive medicine and also in the curative aspect of Ayurveda. And mind is given very much importance in maintaining the health and also in the treatment, causative factors of diseases and also in the treatment of diseases. So body-mind relationship is expressed like this. In Ayurvedic physiology, we have Vata, Pitta and Kapha. These are the three biological forces. Because of those three forces only our body functions. All the physiology is dependent on Vata, Pitta and Kapha, and all the functions in our body take place because of Vata and Pitta, Kapha. And as long as they are in balance, we are healthy. If there is any imbalance in these three doshas, it leads to diseases. The same way, mind is having three gunas, that is Sattva, Raja and Tama. So our mental functions are because of this Sattva and Raja and Tamo guna. The relation between body and mind is Pitta is connected with the Sattva guna and Vata is connected with the Rajo guna and Kapha is connected with the Tamo guna. And Sattva guna is something that is the causative factor for self-control, knowledge and discriminating ability. So those who have more Sattva guna will have this type of positive qualities, and those who are more in Rajo guna will have this nature of violence, despotic and self-admiration and authoritative nature. All these are considered to be connected with the Rajo guna. And Tamo guna is something that is very dull, non-action and always sleepy. These are minimum characteristics that I have explained, but there are a number of factors connected with the Sattva, Raja and Tamo gunas. See, in Ayurvedic Samhitas, the functions of mind are described like this, that is mind is connected with the Chintana, Vichara, Uha, Dhyana, Indriya Nigraha and Sankalpa, Swanigraha. So, Indriya Nigraha is the mind controls all the sensory perceptions, whether to perceive it or not to perceive is under the control of mind. And Swanigraha is more important. Mind is controlled by mind only. There is no other control over mind. Mind can be controlled only through the mind. And all these experiences are through mind only. Like Icha is desire, Dvesha is hatred, Sukha is pleasure, and Dukkha pain, Prayatna is effort. All these are experienced only because of the mind. And more importantly, all these I am just giving you the important factors explained in Ayurveda related to the mind, only to the mind. I am just presenting those things. And in while a child is born, a child gets different characters or factors from the mother, that is Matruja Bhavas, father is Pitruja Bhavas, Atmaja Bhavas, Sattvaja Bhavas and Sapnyaja Bhavas. From the nutrition, that the mother takes, and from the mother's genes and from father's genes, and also from a mind. These are called as Sattvaja bhavas, those are connected with the mind. So, whoever has a personality is, the personality is determined at the time of birth to some extent, because the mind already is there in the body, and all these factors like bhakti, that is dedication, shila is conduct, saucha, dvesha, smriti, moha, tyaga, matsarya, shaurya, bhaya, krodha, tandra, utsaha, tikshnata, mrudutva, gambhirata and asthirata, instability, all these factors are coming from the mind to a child. And I have given just brief account of what is there about mind in Ayurveda, and now about Yoga Shastra. Yoga is actually meant for, so everybody knows that it is Chitta Vritti Nirodha, that is stilling the mind in order to experience ultimate reality by removing the fluctuations of the mind. And yoga offers the ways to overcome the intellectual, emotional and instinctive defects. Patanjali prescribes yoga for physical and mental health at individual level and at social and community level also. And he has given 4 parikarmas, the Kriya Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga, to help us in the purification of mind. The 4 parikarmas are Maitri, Karuna, Mudita and Upeksha. Actually, this type of these parikarmas are mentioned even in Charaka Samhita also. Actually, there is a belief that Charaka Samhita, Patanjali Yoga Sutras and grammar, the Sanskrit grammar, all were written by Patanjali only. That is an impression. I mean, nobody knows whether it is true or not, but there are so much in common in these subjects that people believe that all these were written by Patanjali only. All these are very much helpful in counseling of a patient, this Maitri, Karuna, Mudita and Upeksha. And Kriya Yoga contains the Tapa, Swadhyaya and Ishvara Pranidhana. And Ashtanga Yoga, as everybody knows, this all 8 steps are there. And another contribution that is a very big gift for human human beings of all times, all places, is that the breath is the controller of the mind. Mind can be controlled through the breath. It is a very good universal prescription for everybody to have a mental peace and to control the mind through the breath. It is not at all possible to control the mind through any other things. Even if you take medicines also, they cause so many other side effects and all. But through the breath, if you can control the mind, it is easy for everybody to use. You can use it forever, and that is the best prescription given by Patanjali. And when the breath control is equal to mind control, and slow, soft, subtle and steady exhalation leads to a pensive state of mind. And steady and peaceful breathing minimizes the fluctuations and stabilizes the mind. These are all we need in Ayurveda. That is the reason I am giving all these details. See, in Ayurveda, the swastha means a healthy person is one who has all the balanced doshas, balance in the mind and good digestive system, all these are there. In that, mind is given an importance that if the mind is peaceful, only then one is considered to be a healthy person. See, what I have done is I wanted to go through the Charaka Samhita and find out what was the importance given to mind in the diseases. So, I have chosen a set of 20 diseases and classified all the causative factors into ahara, vihara, manasika causes and other factors. Kama, krodha, bhaya, shoka, lobha, moha, ishya, mana, mada, chittodvega and krodha. All these are the mental conditions. When they are in little more in intensity, they are considered as diseases in Ayurveda. All these are considered as mental diseases by themselves, and they are causative factors for some diseases also. So, the study results of first table are given like this. For 12 of those diseases that I have taken out of the 20 diseases, 12 diseases were having 33% of the causative factors from mind, and 5 diseases had more than 50% of the causative factors as the from the mind. And again a study result second number 2 shows that shoka, that is grief, was causing 13 diseases, krodha, anger, was the causative factor in 12 diseases, bhaya, that fear is the causative factor in 10 diseases, and that Sattvavajaya Chikitsa can be done through the Ashtanga Yoga. That is my observation, and there are so many references in Ayurvedic Samhita to show that they were using the Ashtanga Yoga, the principles of Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Samadhi, everything in different health conditions. They were using this, the references were there in the Ayurvedic Samhitas. So, Sattvavajaya Chikitsa is Sattva Avajaya, means winning over the mind from harmful objects, taking out the phobia nucleus, controlling the modifications of the mind, and detachment from evil thoughts and habits. So, this Sattvavajaya Chikitsa, now that you all know about Ashtanga Yoga, it can be this Sattvavajaya Chikitsa can be developed based on the Ashtanga Yoga. So, Yama Niyama will develop positive attitude in human beings, asanas helpful in stable mind, controlling mind through the body postures, and pranayama control of mind, peace of mind, and controls modifications, and pratyahara clearly is for the negative thoughts like kama, krodha, moha, mada, matsarya can be cleared through the pratyahara, and dhyana, that is relaxing and controlling of the exaggerated mental factors, is positive through the dhyana. So, all these are helpful for Sattvavajaya Chikitsa of Ayurveda. So, conclusions: Ayurvedic approach to health and disease emphasizes on mind. Mind is the psychic cause for many physical diseases, and Ayurveda and yoga have similar thoughts, and Ayurveda was the first to demonstrate that yoga is a method of treatment. Otherwise, yoga by itself is not a therapeutic science, but Ayurveda was the rishis of Ayurveda were the first to understand and establish that yoga can be used in the treatment of diseases. So, Sattvavajaya Chikitsa of Ayurveda is mostly under the purview of yoga. And my recommendations: Ayurvedic physicians may use yoga as Sattvavajaya Chikitsa to treat the mental component of diseases and help mankind to lead a healthy and happy life. There is a strong case for inclusion of yoga as Sattvavajaya Chikitsa in the syllabus for the students of Ayurveda, and interdisciplinary research by scholars of Ayurveda and yoga will be greatly helpful in developing and delivering enhanced treatments, especially in the case of psychosomatic diseases. Like Vata is connected with movement. So, Rajoguna is always like not a stable mind. So, it is always wavery type of mind, and Pitta is considered to be Sattva Guna because it is a stable mind. The characteristics, the Pitta Prakriti also, so many characteristics are described, and Sattva Guna also is, Sattva Guna is related to that, and Tamo Guna is one which is always no movement, nothing, it is a very dull nature, and it is a negative character. That is because of the Tamo Guna, Kapha is related to that. And Pitta, the Prakriti itself is related to the Sattva. So, Pitta is a stable one.
Which quality of Pitta is associated with stability?
Stable mind, connected with the stable mind.
And do you have a reference for where these associations are made in Charaka?
Pardon?
Do you have a reference for
yes,
where?
Yes, all the references I have given in detail in the complete full paper. All quotations are given there. You can just go through the paper. Yeah, Charaka Samhita, wholly Charaka Samhita and Yoga Sutras are there, and Sankhya philosophy also relates your Sattva Guna with the stability, and more from Charaka Samhita, and all my paper is based on Charaka Samhita.
I congratulate the learned speaker for such a brilliant presentation. Now that actually reminds me of some interactions between Indian thought, wisdom, and Arab thought, or call it some Islamic paradigms, even in the field of treatment or therapy. During the Abbasid times, there were a powerful segment of Chamberlains known as the Barmakis, Jafar Barmaki, Khalid Barmaki. They happened to be basically the Buddhists of either from Kashmir originally or from Gujarat. And they, after some time, they had settled in Balakh region, that is in the Bactria kingdom. And during the advent of Islam, they were converted to Muslims, and after some time they assumed great powers in the course of Abbasids. The point here is that they had played a very significant role in assimilating Indian wisdom. They had called a number of Indian physicians we do have names of Manka al-Hindi, Shanaq al-Hindi, and so on and so forth. I have written a paper on this subject, and what transpired to me is around 35, 36 books from Sanskrit were translated into Arabic, and a large number of them were related to Indian medicine. Among the books which I recollect now were translated into Arabic was one that is the Charak Samhita of Brahmagupta, I think. Charak Samhita. Another Shushrat Samhita. Yeah. These two books were translated by Ibrahim al-Fazari. Ibrahim al-Fazari, who happened to be a big translator, a great translator in the Abbasid times, and his son were translated into Arabic. And the fragments, Ibrahim al-Fazari.
What is the time of translation?
The Abbasid times, the Abbasid period. Abbasid period. And the original translation of Ibrahim al-Fazari is lost, but major fragments are preserved in a book written by al-Biruni, Abu Rayhan al-Biruni, who had come to India during the Ghaznavid period, and he had stayed in Varanasi, learned the Sanskrit language, and he's regarded to be the first Indologist, Kitabul Hind, for his, in the great book that is Kitabul Hind. So his book, one of his books is Kitabut Tanjim, and this book is available, it is printed, and it actually comes brings to us a big chunk of these two books related to Indian medicine.
The learner, one of the commentators on Ayurveda, he makes an observation that now the physicians have stopped consulting the one-agers for various medicines and other things. And from then on we find that is around about 12th or 13th century that there is a sort of a stagnation which comes in. And therefore such type of researches which will try to rediscover some of the basic things, probably they will be useful. And this way I really congratulate you.
Most importantly, in the contemporary times, I feel that we need to have a language, a communication, which helps us to disseminate it better. So maybe I can understand, possibly some very abstract concepts. But there could always be what anthropologists call, and to my mind, my observation is a big epistemic gap. There is a big gap between the experts and the lay people. Experts understand it, lay people perhaps need a certain language, put across the difficult concepts. So I think really I am very, very thankful yesterday for his concluding remark. That was his concluding remark, it should go to the society for the larger benefit of society. And for that, we need better comprehension, better communication. So that's why the neuroscience of yoga. Science, of course, stands tall on the shoulders of many people. So whole list of people who have been with me all these years together. Next. This is the one research question which has occupied our attention as a group. We are a group of, you can say, amateur yoga researchers. Many disciplines like astronomy which have amateur researchers, they manage their own professional activities. In addition, they are also involved into the research part. So it's a network within India and Germany of amateurs. In that sense, we manage our own affairs. This is the research question, research meta question. This came up actually during almost 10 years ago. I was invited to Regensburg University for a lecture. And this question came at that time, is there anything unique about yoga? Of course, 2007, I was 11 years younger, more spirited, and that time I had a question, because I was very strongly into the clinical research, new medicines, drug research. So I had a question, that should yoga be researched like a drug? Of course, 11 years down the line, I have lost some of my stream and then some gray hair. So instead of should yoga be researched as a drug, today I ask that do we really need to research it like a drug? So of course the goalpost has completely changed. There is a very interesting report, and I think all of you should read this. It was made by US Department of Health, Evidence Report 155, came about 10 years ago. It's a nice compilation, it's a meta-analysis of all the research on yoga and various meditation over 50-year span. And it had two important conclusions. One conclusion was about the outcome studies, methodological quality of outcome studies, not up to the mark. But the second one, even more important, that there was no proper theoretic understanding. No proper theoretic understanding which the traditional people could pass on to the researchers. So there was a big gap there. Traditional people, they talk of something, but the medical people don't understand, what this is exactly about. And this gap, theoretic gap, as well as the poor outcome studies, the report pointed out are the real obstacles in the further progress of this field. So we thought that, let us try and work on this, So we had a threefold method. We tried to study the classic text with the knowledgeable people and also corresponding neuroscience, personal experiential aspect, and we have been doing a lot of research, particularly focused more on the autonomic nervous system, but of course involving other modalities. Next. It has been presented in few conferences last few years. Publications would be on the way. You can get to read all that next. We met these two nice conferences. The first one was with Joshi Madam and her Mumbai group in the philosophy department, and we together made this conference on neuroscience of yoga, from yoga for health to yoga for wisdom. Next. And thereafter, last year, we made this conference in my hospital, integrating yoga and medicine in developing the evidence-based guidelines. It was a nice conference. People from about 30 countries, they participated. It was a big conference. Next one. All these years, we have also been trying to do what you can call as a continuing yoga education courses for yoga teachers, because we realized that they have no real good proper concept in medicine and neuroscience, and they need to have it, it would make them better teachers. We started this experiment first in Germany about 10 years ago, and last 4 years, we are also doing it, workshops in India. So as to upgrade, in a way, you can say the yoga teachers. Next. 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 Then this is to give you an idea, the type of directional change, that we have had in doing this research. One of our recent ones presented a couple of months ago in World Congress of Neuro Rehab. Here the idea in this study that yoga is not a therapy, it is not a physiotherapy. People have to learn it, you could teach them what to do, they could practice it. That's why simple self-paced yogasan learning and home practice. So we tried actually, to bring it really on the course, in the sense that rather than gathering people, administering it like a group intervention or like a physiotherapy, let people learn and practice at home. And we had some very nice, interesting results, in terms of quality of the outcome was even superior compared to the kind of a group classes, including very nice effect on the cognitive functioning itself. So very interesting thing. Next. New York City, as you may be aware perhaps, prides itself in being the home base of data sciences. New York University was the first one to start this whole data science thing. There is a convergence in neuroscience and data science. Very nice review article by Seth and Friston. Carl Friston, you may perhaps be aware, is like a father figure in neuroimaging, and represents the current thinking about the brain, because brain we try to think in terms of computer and whatever analogies, which we have. So the general understanding today, the general consensus in neuroscience today is brain is a statistical organ. Okay? So it's not a stimulus response link, it's a statistical organ. What does it mean is that it takes in data, and based upon the data, it builds itself, So next. Updating beliefs about the world based upon sensory samples. Children, they have the best example of this. They have the curiosity, they explore the world, they take in the data. And this model tells us perhaps the most important thing from the viewpoint of yoga, that if input goes wrong, the belief goes wrong. The belief kind of got deleted there. Okay? So the input is very important. You feed in the wrong data and you have a whole disturbed structure there. Second very important thing is input is also a way to know hidden belief. How do you know about your own brain? There was a long philosophic dialogue once upon a time between Eccles and Popper. Eccles was a Nobel laureate, neuroscientist, Nobel laureate, and Popper was a philosopher. So they had a dialogue wherein Eccles poses this question, that is it possible for the neuron to know itself, in a metaphoric way. So how do you know your brain? Brain is like a black box. In engineering terms, it's like a black box. Okay, so what it does is that if you stimulate it in a specific way, and depending upon what you see, you come to know of the properties of brain. In other words, the input is very important. If you give it a random input, you get random results. If there is something in a systematic way by way of input to the brain, you get a better construction of the belief system. You are all wise people, you understand, yoga describes in great detail that why there is a data corruption, and what the way to correct it. Next. I had originally thought that the academic coordinator would place my session in the yoga as a science one, but in his wisdom he thought, and in a way it's good, he thought that I should also speak something about health. So what is the signature of health? When I was a medical student, early 80s, and it was still fashionable, to measure patient's pulse that time. So we are taught in medical school, touch the patient, measure the pulse. We were taught that regularity of pulse is the sign of health. This guy, Eri Goldberger, not far from here, in Harvard, Boston. So this guy, he studied cardiac dynamics. Next one. This is the regularity, this is a slight irregularity. Okay. So this guy said slight irregularity is better for health. Complete regularity is not really, so good for health. Slight irregularity is better. Next. This is from our own labs, our own recordings. This is the healthy, this is a Poincare plot of heart rate variability. Don't need to know the technical things about it, but you can see a nice cigar-shaped, comet-shaped spread there. What you see here comparatively is a squeezing, of the data points. This is from a diabetic patient who has a autonomic neuropathy. Next. Then here you see another type of pattern, as if all these points are going out, they are losing their coherence, they are all going all over the place. It's from a comatose patient who has really a very poor prognosis. Okay, next. So if you put these three things together, you very clearly know, this is health, too much squeezing is not health, and too much spread is not health. Next. So healthy variability is a sign of health. So it's pretty well, very well established medical knowledge now. In physics, it's called as chaos. Maybe you can call it being in the zone. So if you are in this zone, it's order actually. So chaos is the order. When people say that India is in chaos, I am happy, because it means that India is in a fairly good order. So both reduced variability, deterministic. The system becomes more deterministic, and exaggerated fluctuations which takes the system towards a random state. They both are not really healthy. Next. These people into the late 80s, they wrote this nice book, From Clocks to Chaos, The Rhythm of Life. So you can read it if you have the interest. Next. Where does it lead? Yesterday, the health policy lady, she raised question about health. The good thing in medicine is you always find, crazy guys who can support your ideas. So there is this fellow who supports this idea that according to this paper, health means how well the body is functioning in accordance with its natural design. Okay? This is an interesting concept because it opens up scope for thinking a situation where a person can have an illness and yet he can be a fit person. Person can have diabetes, person can have cancer and yet he can be a fit person. And you may have no illness, but you actually can be a completely disordered, unfit person. Okay? So perhaps the two are different dimensions, there is a convergence and they need to be perhaps be dealt with in different ways. Next. Just couple of minutes more. Same principle you can apply in cognition. Okay? So you have a state of mind wandering, all of us experience this mind wandering, or brooding, you are stuck with one thought. So either a random kind of a state of thinking or where you are stuck with one thing. Okay? And then you can also have a nice variability called as flow. Nice. Next, which you can again read in this article. People recently put this idea together that it's a pleasant state of absorption during optimally challenging activity, undivided attention, time experience, self-reference fades, so on and so forth. You can read this paper. Next. So this has therefore been the subject matter of our work, yoga and healthy dynamics. Okay? So we tried to understand. Next. Couple of photographs I quickly run. So this is one part of it, autonomic nervous system, it links the brain with all the internal organs. Next. The balance is important. Next. And the same cognition dynamics, nice work from Vinod Menon from Stanford. Same system, either you have a tight focus or you have a loose mind wandering. In between there is a switch. Next. So we have been doing, many of these ambulatory studies while people actually performing all these practices. Once upon a time, there was a technical difficulty in doing these kind of things, too much noisy data you get. So, but nowadays, engineers, great help. Next. Medicine, as you know, is a cruel field. There is something called as a shark syndrome. You try to make a presentation in a medical conference, one fellow bites you, you bleed, and many sharks kind of come around. So to prove a point, you really need to go on generating evidence. So it's not only sufficient to show something is happening in experienced people, because the next question is what happens in people who are naive, who have never done this. Or the next question is that fine, you say it happens in yoga, but yogasana also is aerobic activity. So also, show me that what you do, when you compare it with bicycling, adjusted to the same calories. Next. So you do this, kind of a multiple interesting things, and then you find, something kind of interesting here. Okay? So for example, I think all of you do this. When you do this, when you attempt inverted asana, there is a circulatory conflict in the sense that your heart is getting flooded, with all the blood. Brain doesn't get flooded with blood, but the heart gets flooded, completely flooded, with. So how does the system resolve? Next. So we have this interesting result. All these assessments done during 5 minutes of yogasana each, because the FFT analysis needs huge amount of data, different asanas, Tadasana, Adho Mukha Svanasana, Virabhadrasana, Paschimottanasana, Sarvangasana, Shirshasana, different asanas. And what do you find? Next. We find that there are different type of patterns, which are kind of generated out of it, which overcome the circulatory conflict and support different behavioral states. Autonomic nervous system commonly is associated with fight and flight. If you are talking of a state of peace and harmony in yoga, you should have the substrate for it. You cannot simply talk psychologically of achieving a state of peace and not have a system that doesn't really produce a signature of peace. Okay? So something that kind of Detailing, of course, we always have plenty of time to discuss. Next. Then we said that also, look, let us do the EMG and EEG thing. Yeah, just a minute, yeah. Next. Maharshi people, of course, have been the pioneers about doing the EEG studies, and you find something very interesting, that once a person has set oneself into the asana, you find a relaxed state of the key muscles. There is a good, nice relaxation. Yesterday, you already spoke, about the brain states next. As far as electrical activity is concerned, so the flight of yogasana is something like that. Get into the asana, and then you are in this cruising. The next. This technique, interestingly, also helps us understand. If you do the same asana in exercise way, using a bit of a muscle, versus if you do it like a yogasana should happen, So there is a complete difference between the two. This is the proper asana, you can see. This is the same person doing the same asana, cramped, completely two different kind of a complete. So yoga should be done like yoga. Next. Of course, other work which supports this, Streeter's thalamic GABA work, and our colleagues from Nimans, now they are cortical GABA work, it helps create this kind of a nice situation by doing the sensory gating. Next. So here is therefore some of this simple language, that we think should be introduced. We all know about this, mind wandering which is automatic. Neuroscience research has found something very interesting, that if you do intentional mind wandering versus if the mind wandering is happening automatic, the effects are completely opposite. Okay? Next. So holding attention on a field is the framing, continuity of exploration is streaming. Okay? So the dharana, the dhyan, and then of course, you have the flow experience, and you can do it in different modalities, imagery, savitarka, savichar, sanand, sasmit. You could kind of try it out into different brain areas, different one, but the process is the same. Next. Recent study from Max Planck, one of our colleagues from Max Planck, he found that if you do this intentional mind wandering, so you have a frame, and within that frame, if you do the intentional mind wandering, the two networks which normally don't combine, the focus attention and the streaming, they normally don't combine, but in this state actually the two are combining, and these people have bigger and better brains. Next. Similar kind of study comes from a creative idea, that the two networks, the focus and the stream, wherein which are supposedly not to be mixing, in normal neurology, ordinary neurology, they mix to combine, support creative idea formation. So three things are really very important, neurologically speaking. First is an intentionality. It's a complete difference between intentional action versus when it is happening automatically. Second important part, which is important and which perhaps differentiates yoga from many other meditative techniques, is the action part. So there is a completely well designed systematic action, and of course you have to observe the action, the feedback. In fact, neurologically, if you look at it, in this type of piloting kind of action, almost 80–90% part is a sensory part. So the doing is a relatively less proportion. It's the observational part which is a kind of a really larger part in it. Okay? So one makes use of the feedback to improvise the action, so you get into the order or into the zone. And if you continue these kind of a long loop iterations, it leads to habit suppression, new learning, and ultimately reorganization and emergence of new abilities. Okay. So this study, which gives therefore credence to the fact that if you persistently pursue this activity, even a physical transformation is possible in your brain. Neuroplasticity in the brain, nice study, MRI study, people who have been doing yoga practice over several years, when you compare them with non-practitioners, they have advantage.
I come to you today as a practicing neurologist. We've also been practicing the TM technique for 40 some odd years, and very interested in integrating yoga and meditation into clinical practice. And I want to let you know, first of all, the good news, which is that over the last 10 to 20 years, the receptivity of patients, whether they have familiarity with yoga or meditation or Ayurveda or not, has increased measurably. It's really nice to see. So that it's rare that I come to a patient and say, well, have you considered this to calm down the physiology and the nervous system to help you deal with your illness and perhaps decrease this dis-ease that you feel, this illness. And most patients are saying, oh, yes, yes, yes. I've thought about that. And in fact, I have done this. And I tried this, and I looked online, and I tried to do this relaxation. So the receptivity is there, but the guidance is needed to get them on the right path so that they really get the full effect of this knowledge. And the way I like to explain it to them is twofold. I said, let's take a look at the complementary aspect of yoga union, of the individual physiology with its unbounded basis. And let's look at what happens during that process to see that we've produced a different physiological state. And then they can understand that producing that state can then have the side benefits of improvement of health and how they feel. I'll tell you that as a neurologist, probably about 30% of the patients that I see in the office as opposed to the emergency room or the hospital have mild afflictions that are bothering them psychologically, some symptom that they're latching onto, but in fact don't have any bad disease that's going to kill them or disable them. And so they're very reassured to hear that. And then, of course, there are many patients that have illnesses that are going to be more challenging. But in both cases, it's important for them to understand how the nervous system works and what they can do to help improve the situation itself. So, chronic stress has a deleterious effect on the entire physiology, including the brain. We talk about, and Dr. Phadke mentioned the autonomic nervous system, the production of catecholamines by the adrenal glands, the rise in blood pressure, and the prolonged exposure of what we call the limbic system, including the hippocampus and the amygdala and the septum, those older areas phylogenetically at the base of the brain. The prolonged exposure of that system to cortisol, which is produced by the adrenal glands, damages the hippocampus. Now, the hippocampus is the gateway to memory. If you damage the hippocampus, it's not a good thing. In people with chronic stress, the hippocampus becomes smaller, and so cognition is impaired. And also, that entire limbic system is then thrown off. Right, so, well, it's this way. It changed, huh? Oh, good. So let's talk about the transcendental meditation technique. I know we've talked about it before here. So if there's a way that we can decrease the production of cortisol, as an example, decrease the excessive production of catecholamines in relation to stress, and at the same time increase the activity and the coherent activities Dr. Arvind and Dr. Travis mentioned yesterday, prefrontal cortex, then we can do something good to reduce that stress response and reduce the chronic response to stress. And we can demonstrate this by surface EEG recordings, and you saw that yesterday. So this can improve focus, memory, ability to plan, analytical thinking, creativity, interpersonal behavior. So the psychological aspect can improve. But in addition, the autonomic nervous system, when we think about the fight or flight reaction and blood pressure and sweaty palms and changes in bowel habits and all these other things, that doesn't exist in isolation as the peripheral autonomic nervous system. It's governed by the limbic system, which in turn receives its input from the neocortex or the prefrontal cortex. So that if there is some psychological stressor, obviously there has to be some cognitive process and then an emotional response to it, the base of the brain, and then the autonomic nervous system that we think of via the hypothalamus getting its information to the limbic system, and then down to the sympathetic nervous system is going to react. So, if you have a technique that allows the mind to settle down and experience that settled state of awareness with this state of physiological rest at the same time with this increased awareness, then you have, after only a few weeks of regular practice, decreased risks because the autonomic nervous system is more stabilized. And you know, it's just even a little bit of this yoga really dispels a great fear in a very, very strong sense for patients. It's amazing how many people start these practices and say, you know, it's better. It's better. Let's talk about also the metabolic syndrome. Pressure increases, hyperlipidemia, increased cholesterol, triglycerides, and bad cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol, glucose intolerance. These are all modifiable, and we know that they're modifiable to a certain extent by diet and by exercise. But we also have research now that shows that settling the mind, in addition, can modify them in a positive way. And so it will also help patients with coronary artery disease. So here's an example of decreased indicators of stress during the actual meditation technique, decreased respiratory rate, decreased production of plasma lactate. That's from the anaerobic metabolism, a sign of increased sympathetic nervous system activity, and decrease in the basal skin conductance on a microscopic level, the sweaty palms. And then this carries on into activity, because naturally if you experience this state of yoga on a regular basis, twice a day, and then have activity in between, as we saw yesterday, the effects of that carry on into your regular activity. And so the brain starts functioning more in that settled manner, even when you're in vigorous activity. And of course, then the autonomic nervous system settles down to that more settled state. What are the studies that have been done with blood pressure? And there have been the most number of studies for this technique for blood pressure, because it's such a prevalent problem. And you know, the studies show the same thing whether or not it's you're teaching kids in high school who have pre-hypertension or beginnings of hypertension, elderly populations, patients in the low socioeconomic group or higher groups, Native Americans, pick the group. And basically, within weeks, you get the same response. This is systolic blood pressure. This is progressive muscle relaxation. This is the educational control, and that's the TM technique. And a decrease of 5 or 10 points in systolic pressure is very significant. Same with diastolic pressure, the lower number. And then, this is just a meta-analysis of 17 different studies. And you can see the effects of actually that state of yoga, that settled state, as opposed to, you know, more mechanical relaxation techniques or biofeedback, which can have effects as well. Improvement in functional capacity, as you might expect, and this is in patients with cardiac disease, congestive heart failure. And a study that was done some years ago in the very elderly had really positive results. Patients staying alive longer. And this is teaching patients this technique who obviously are not in the prime of life, so you think, well, how are they going to learn this meditation technique? So if it's easy enough, if it's an effortless technique, they can learn and see the benefits. effect of decrease in mortality and morbidity, and decreased healthcare utilization, outpatient medical care, as you can imagine, decreased doctor visits, younger biological age. We look at measures of hormones like dihydroepiandrosterone, blood pressure, auditory acuity, and the like. Good. So a decrease in chronological age. Finally, these are just some of the things that we talked about already. So this is a quote from Srimad Yogi: "When the total intelligence of natural law Veda is lively in individual physiology, there's perfect synchrony between the functioning of the body as a whole and between individual intelligence and cosmic intelligence. Cosmic intelligence being that wisdom of the body that exists at that ground state of the mind." So with this complete integration, thought and action are spontaneously in harmony with natural law, and the individual enjoys perfect health, and that's always something that people say, what do you mean perfect health? And it's an interesting concept. So the idea here of perfect health is, and I think our previous speaker alluded to it, is that the physiology functions the way it should. This is not to say that, being this relative body, that's not going to have a beginning and an end. But as we understand from the philosophy and the practice of yoga, that if we begin to experience this settled state and understand this as the true nature of us and not our individual body or physiology, then whether the body comes or goes, we've established that state of unity. So that's basically what I had to say. And just a couple of slides, I won't go into this in any detail, is that one of the most gratifying aspects of quick change around in terms of health, mental health, physiological health, are in patients with post-traumatic stress disorder. Because it so clouds the mind, these repeated painful recollections of traumatic events, that these patients, just a little bit of this transcending, just a little bit of this experience of the settled state of the mind, and it's almost miraculous, really, how much a difference that makes. That they begin to experience that, yes, this is my true nature, as opposed to all that stressful event and its effect on the mind. And talk about hippocampus and also the amygdala. I won't really go through it. I'm just showing where the hippocampus is and the amygdala, and these are activated in post-traumatic stress disorder. And in places such as Africa, where post-traumatic stress in areas of conflict is sky high, it's amazing what just a couple of weeks of teaching of this type of meditation. So that's it, and I'm happy to take questions. Yes.
I have a question. Maybe you could help explain a phenomenon that I experienced. I had a lot of stress going into the PhD program, and part of why I was attracted to reciting Vedic texts is because it accelerates your evolution. And so I've been, subjectively, I'd already been doing TM, but I was reading the text that Dr. Nader actually correlated with the ANS system. And from a subjective experience, when I was reciting Shiksha, which is ANS, and then Kalp, which was associated with the limbic system, it's almost like I would watch all this intensity from inside. It was almost like a ball of dynamic energy, and it would just spiral out at just incredible speed. And, TM does that. It's 20 minutes twice a day, but then when I was adding on all these techniques, it's almost like I would just watch that speed increase at the rate at which the heat would move out of my system, and then all the, like the static that usually comprises your mind, that started to clear out. And then, about a year and a half in, there was more silence, but there used to be a lot of noise. So I was wondering if you could offer either like a mental framework for understanding how that could have been, or second thing was, is there any way to apply research, just the way that we've uncovered the effects of TM, can you apply any kind of methodology for understanding objectively what I was experiencing subjectively.
As part of your thesis, did you have these experiences written down?
Oh, yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Because this is, I mean, this is really, it's N=1 type research, but it's so important, you know,
Right.
to understand the effects of recitation of these Vedic texts from the individual, you know, experience. But I like to think of it as there's this cognitive aspect to our cortical brain and thinking, and at the same time there's a parallel and integrated function of the limbic system. And just like when I tell a patient who's, you know, completely frightened when they come to the office, you know that tremor you have? It's a familial tremor. Your father probably had it if he was old enough, and you don't have Parkinson's disease. And also, you know, there's this incredible relief. The cognitive process is similar. They still have the concern. They're still thinking about the tremor. The link to the limbic system, emotional coloration of it, completely different.
So in some ways, the story helped recover from the physical symptoms,
exactly.
right? But
So
I've done.
sometimes it's the knowledge that does it, but if you can culture the nervous system such that the emotions are there, you know, if your parent dies, there's still sorrow. If something hit your toe, it still hurts, but yet there's this what Dr. Travis talked about yesterday, this undulation at 10 cycles per second between the thalamus and the neocortex is still there. It's still resilient. Then it doesn't overshadow. I think that's what we're really, you know, that's where the research is going to go to see where that is.
That's exciting. And I mean, just a quick point. It just seems like there's a difference between like positive talk therapy, which would be one way to utilize my speech mechanism, which didn't really change anything. And to some extent, it changed. But more significantly, like sound values were somehow bypassing the language system and going into something deeper because it was like precognitive aspects of my psyche that were coming to the forefront, if that makes any sense. It's like the unconscious was...
It makes perfect sense. I
Okay.
think both are important. And I think psychiatrists will tell you, you can get people out of depression with cognitive behavior therapy. It works sometimes. It doesn't work all the time. But it's not a bad adjunct to doing something else that's going to help the nervous system.
That's helpful. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do as a clinician who is in active practice, as someone who trains doctors here, I will probably raise some of the clinical benefits of yoga, some of the global effects of yoga without going into the deep research which has been done by Dr. Kaplan already excellently. And then maybe raise some concerns about whether we are following the right path when it comes to the right implementation of yoga. All right, so let's start. I start with this only to set up the ambience. You know, we all know about Nalanda University, we all know about Harvard University. It is historically, it was considered to be one of the earliest scholarly homes of human civilization. So apart from this architectural brilliance and this majestic display of lofty buildings that you see here, and Nalanda University harbored at various points of time some of the best known scholars. And India during those times, they seduced the finest of the minds from the farthest of the lands. So people came from Tibet, from Persia, from Greece, from China, and they studied at Nalanda University. They studied logic, mathematics, astronomy, yoga, philosophy. And so what is now known as education under university curriculum was actually wisdom, which guided both the mind and the heart. But the transition from Nalanda University to Harvard University, and Harvard University is just an example, it took centuries. And then like sudden rush of an awakened mind, we started getting blessed with technology. And what the East sought, the West now started to pursue, which is the best thing that could happen. The marriage of the East and the West. And what we saw was pure magic, because now we could now penetrate inside the mind of an yogi, inside the mind of a meditator, and see the wondrous spectacle that is inside the brain. But quite befittingly, the honors of this translation of this message from the East to West falls on someone who is very fashionably known as the cyclonic monk from India, Swami Vivekanand. He came in 1893, we all know that. For some time he had the whole scholarly and the intellectual Americans under his belt. But then we took time, and then again, blessed with technology, we got Western science. We started looking into it. So I'm just mentioning one slide, and this is about Dr. Helen Lavretsky. By no means this is the landmark experience. By no means this is pioneering. We've got hundreds of, we've got scientists right here who have been working on that. I'm just taking it as an example. Why I'm taking it as an example? Because the concept of medicine has changed. It has very appropriately become evidence-based medicine. In today's world, like I'm in the business of saving lives, there is no space for any opinions. So if you have a clue, we're going to put it under the microscope, we're going to feel with our palm, and we're going to say, okay, that's the cure. So this is an example of an evidence-based medicine, one of the many examples of evidence-based medicine. But Dr. Helen Lavretsky, she did something which is very cute. She targeted very young boys and girls. With somebody like me, 50 plus, I'm already dogmatic. My ideas are set. What she did was she targeted undergraduate students, some who were like 19 years and 20 years of age, because they're at the threshold of everything that's beautiful. They don't care. So they're not dogmatic. So she picked up those young boys and girls who had anxiety, depression, etc., and she divided them into two parts. One of them listened to relaxation tapes and exercises, whereas the other group went through various forms of yoga, Kundalini yoga, Kirtan Kriya yoga. And lo and behold, she found that there were less evidences of anxiety, less evidences of stress, and Dr. Kaplan mentioned about the cortisol level, because this is about evidence-based medicine. Some of you from the corner can stand up and say, anxiety is so subjective. He or she might feel there is less anxiety, gets out of the room, and then the anxiety comes back. So what she did was to measure the cortisol level, the steroid level, which invariably goes up on moments of stress. And lo and behold, she found that the levels of steroids have all come down in comparison to the control group. So this is a cut and paste from Harvard University. None of the words or syllables are written by me. It just goes on to show, again, as explained by the doctors before, the tremendous repertoire of yoga. I mean, whether it is talking about lowering the blood pressure, lowering the cholesterol, diabetes, your overall fitness, the list is just limitless. And then again about stress, Dr. Kaplan mentioned about stress. The reason I'm bringing up stress, I'm taking a slightly different perspective. We all know about stress. We are one hapless Homo sapiens. We are condemned to stress out. We have financial stress, psychological stress, political stress. We have all types of stresses that we have. But the question is, there was this landmark experiment that was done by Dr. Linda Ma from University of Toronto, where she found out the exact areas of the brain that got hit by stress. We are looking at left hippocampus, we are looking at prefrontal cortex, etc., we know. But we also found that there's a certain disease called Alzheimer's disease. And if there is anything which is waiting in the corner to become a national and an international epidemic, then that's Alzheimer's disease. I know, and you know, that we do not know much about Alzheimer's disease. We are virtually scratching the surface. We do not have a curative drug. And Alzheimer's disease is not about, I don't know where my bathroom is. It's much more than that. It comes in a package. It can be slow and agonizing. It can be fast and furious. It has been found that meditation and yoga can increase the functional capacity of those exact areas of the brain which get hit with Alzheimer's. So that is basically the triumph of Alzheimer's. I refuse to get into the depth of it just for the sake of time. But this is the take-home message, that even for Alzheimer's, we are actually saying not to cure Alzheimer's, but to prevent Alzheimer's. This adoption of these profound holistic measures can actually thwart the onslaught of this beast of a disease. So I'm going to get out of this personal things. I'm going to talk about the tremendous effect of yoga in mass disasters. 26th of December 2004, death dominated certain parts of the world. Indonesia and Malaysia got hit with tsunami. In one sweep, hundreds and thousands of men, women, and children, they perished. Those who survived, they suffered all the more. There was agony, there was loneliness, there was solitude, there was this wild whirl of nameless sorrow. United Nations stepped in. What did they do? They introduced yoga on those patients or those individuals who were suffering from all these depressions and anxiety. And again, we found those remarkable results of lessening of depression, lessening of anxiety. Mind you, this is only yoga. This is not a drug. A drug is good. I prescribe medications. But the problem with the drug is that it has its own sweet side effects. It has its tolerance. No drug is an angel in the sky. If you go back 10 years back, you see those skulls here? I'm sorry? See those skulls here? This is from Rwanda. There was a Rwanda, in Rwanda there was a genocide. This time it's not nature killing men, it's men killing men. And hundreds and thousands of children and women and men died. And again, yoga stepped in. And it was a challenging situation because certain postures of yoga meant that you have to lie down. They couldn't do that because a lot of people actually got gunned down while they were lying down. So they were not receptive to those postures. But yoga has such a repertoire that they were changed into other forms and it worked immeasurably well. Believe it or not, this is my last slide. And I said I'm going to finish before the thing. I want to throw some caution in the wind. Why? I personally have traveled in this country, in Europe, and I have given lectures. And I have come across, and I really need your undivided attention here, and I have come across certain yoga clubs, and they have fancy names. Goat yoga, Beatles yoga, popcorn yoga. And I'm wondering, are we following the right path of yoga? Do we have a complete comprehension of this profundity of yoga? Possibly not. As the previous speakers mentioned, yoga is not a set of exercises. There is a very strong spiritual component in yoga which must be mastered. It's not a pill that you take with a glass of water and you're done with it, which is not the case here. I have been to the Senate, I have been to the Capitol Hill, and we have advocated. And this is the same concern that has come, that we do not have a proper guideline when it comes to implementing yoga from the research lab to the streets. So if cancer can have an American Society of Clinical Oncology, if heart diseases have an American College of Cardiology, yoga must have a governing body. And it has to be a marriage from these two worlds. Has to be the scientists from the West, has to be from the country where it comes. Only when there is a handshake, there is a marriage between the two, can we come out with a guideline. And that guideline is imperative now. We have celebrated yoga a lot. If for us who delivers, us who are private practitioners, we would like to prescribe yoga, then we need a form of a guideline, which we don't have. But again, these academic exercises are great. If this is any indication, then we have every reasons to be hopeful. And I will end my lecture with this hope. I love hope. It's the strongest addiction on earth. And I will end with that hope that one day the art of yoga and the science of yoga will walk hand in hand. One day healing and treatment will walk hand in hand. One day cure and care will walk hand in hand. Thank you very much.
My question pertains to the microbiome, the gut microbiome, the series of gut bacteria and fungi and microcellular organisms which control the brain. So it's been shown that mantra chanting through the stimulation of the vagus nerve, which connects the gut and the brain, modulates brain waves and brain neural activity. So I want to know your perspective, and probably from some of the other panelists, what kind of research needs to be done to show how yogasanas and even the dhyana, the breathing practices, how do they regulate and reset the microbiome? Thank you.
Dr. Kaplan, you want to say something on that? I mean, this is
I think this is a
very exploring
very
field.
active area of research. No, I guess I have. Yes. And I know in neurologic illnesses, we begin to do that research. For instance, the gut microbiome is definitely different in patients with Parkinson's disease, for example. A lot of it is, you don't know, it's chicken and egg, whether it's the disease that causes it.
Cause and effect.
Yeah. So those studies are being done, I think, looking at different techniques, but they're not easy studies. They have to be well controlled. It's hard to find someone who's just doing yoga and looks the same otherwise as a control group. Are they doing, what aspects are they doing?
You're absolutely right. I mean, the one thing that is missing specifically in the microbiomes is a lack of longitudinal studies. So what we actually need to prove, again, we are back to evidence-based medicine, is to have those longitudinal studies where we actually compare and come out with a statistical significance before we can actually say that it is productive.
One thing is, when you said something about guidelines for yoga, it just struck some nerve in me, and I was wondering, what am I feeling? I'm feeling that there is a certain normative aspect to do this, which is good at the sort of more gross levels of yoga, do this much time of pranayama and this and that, it works. But there is also the subtle aspect in which if you the moment you put some time and then you begin to lose them, just be, that whole thing, to do and then think and then be. So I feel like it's more inspiration and more leadership, and which sort of is shaped by the collective leadership, and then leadership shapes the collective leadership. It's a little bit of a self-referral process, which, it has to be done in a very subtle way. Just like, the American Medical Association self-regulates. If your government sort of came down, this is the only way, I think the doctors will not do their best job. So this is how do we sort of we should bring in the self-referral aspect and not lose that subtleness.
I'm so happy you brought it up. I mean, when I was writing my book, so I made a very informal survey amongst physicians, about 100 and 150 of them in the tri-state areas, like, in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. And I asked them these questions. Are you aware of all these treasures of yoga and meditation? And 99% of them said yes. But when I asked them, do you implement? 99% said no. So you have this mindset issue. So that mindset issue is something which needs to be influenced. And that's where the leadership and the collective leadership comes. Thank you for mentioning that. That's the other thing. And that's the other big research they said of all the CEOs of all the big companies here. 80% of the CEOs, they actually go and undertake meditation and yoga. And yet when you go down the ladder and you think about the workforce of the companies, they said it's only 20%.
About the hope, I can say that it's already happening. It's not in future, it is already in the present. And I am an evidence-based faculty at Einstein in dentistry, championed by the ADA. And as a Kripalu Yoga here in Massachusetts, with the esteemed researcher, Dr. Satbir Khalsa, who's so closely connected with India, and the yoga faculty, I call, because it's more a teaching institution, I call it a Harvard Yoga School. That's where I spent 6 months residential study. And it is a pure evidence-based study that I studied. As a dentist, I could embody the asanas,
Absolutely.
Study the anatomy, and we had like psychiatrists, physical therapists in my group, lawyers, all brains. And being 25 years from India, the spiritual aspect was so profound. And it was with the 5 years research in the schools, Dr. Khalsa and all have created, and I took that course. It's an evidence-based practice that is taught in the schools, already a phys ed curriculum, with the neuroscientists, evidence-based, and the psychologists and the psychiatrists. And they are 40 years yoga practitioners like him. He's a Kundalini yoga practitioner and a researcher and a faculty. And they have come up with a book just last June for a big textbook of research with the India and American collaboration. So everybody should have that research book. Dr.
Sure.
Timothy McCall and Dr. Satbir Khalsa, and one from Dr. Talis from Bangalore. So everyone up here who are in yoga research and practitioners and scientific minds should definitely read through that book. So when we go out from here, we can say that, hey, we do have evidence. And it is there now, the beginning. We are right at the beginning stage, and it's our duty or our karma yoga now to take it beyond this as this beautiful research-minded.
No doubt about it. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
I call ourselves a yoga, first international yoga sangha today. We can create that. And let's just all, he mentioned about taking a big stretch. So this is a Kripalu stretch that we all can stand up. And just take one slow, deep breath. Inhale and exhale.
Esteemed friends, Swami Vivekananda says every idea, every sentence, every scriptural utterance must be tested at 4 levels. Number 1, science. Number 2, psychology. Number 3, sociology. Number 4, spirituality. if these 4 levels are not fully convinced rationally, reject it as a poison. We in SVYASA, I am the Pro-Chancellor next to Dr. H.R. Nagendra. We have evolved certain scientific tools to measure everything at the diagnostic level, at the treatment level, at the result level. The most important aspect of our university as a research university is our way of using the scientific tools, instruments. Very little is subjective, 95% is objective. Therefore, at every level, we have, just like ECG, thermometer, and your blood pressure tools to measure, we have the measures, tools, instruments, point number 1. Point number 2, everything is symbolically represented for the benefit of the society. Number 3, we have everything simplified to be understood by the masses. All people cannot afford to come to New York. All people cannot afford to understand our English. They cannot understand the concepts and the research outputs. Therefore, we have the simplification of the concepts to be presented to the masses. Similarly, the techniques of treatment and prevention are very simply presented and clarified. This is the third one. Number 1, we have the tools. Number 2, we have the symbolic presentation. Number 3, we simplify and clarify at every level. This is the work done by SVYASA. Number symbolic presentation, for example, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi at individual level to take you up. At the sociological level, Yama is to denote discipline. Without discipline, there is no progress. The entire world is devoid of discipline. Discipline is threefold. Discipline of place, have a place for everything, have everything in its place. Discipline of time, have everything, a particular time allotted to it and do it at the appointed timing levels. And there is a procedure for everything. Let the full procedure be followed. Karmanyeva adhikaraste mapaleshu kadachana. When we follow the discipline of time, place and procedure, the results take care of themselves. That's what is lacking in the entire world today, and that discipline we propagate through Yama. Niyama is a principle. It is the principle that makes a personality. It is the principle that makes a nation. And that principle is given a goodbye. That principle is to be restored. If Mahatma Gandhi is great, because of his principle. If Sri Ramachandra Prabhu is great, it is because of his principle. If yogic life is great, because of its basic principles. And that principles are enunciated, clarified, simplified, and popularized everywhere. Yama and Niyama. Asana is a view of life, settled view of life. Asana is a settled way of life. Physically, you are observing certain postures, and it is a view of life and way of life. And then pranayama, take as little as possible from the society, give as much as you can to the society. Take as little time, she has already warned me, and give as much as you can. And then pratyahara, eliminate what is not required, assimilate what is needed. And Ram, Dharan, like Anjaneya. And when we are absorbed in it, there is total commitment, there is total involvement to the cause, and that is the jhana. And when we become that, ad bhavam tad bhavati, we become that. And that is the highest state. This is how we symbolically present things. And finally, we make everything very simple and very clear to the masses so that they can be benefited by the yogic practices, yogic analysis. tools we have evolved, we have simplified, we have popularized, and we have presented everything symbolically to the masses. Thank you very much.